Hey guys, it's me, Lego Master 627, and today I am back with another Saturday story. So guys, today I will be telling you guys the story of every single New York trip I have done for the past 12 years. As you can see, they started in 2007, and here in 2019, we still do them. So I decided that since I didn't really have anything really to tell you guys, I did find some old planners that my mom wrote back in the day for pretty much anything she had. And what I found in them were all the days that we did the New York trips for every single year from 2007 to 2019. Well, I think she stopped doing the planners around 2015. But before that, she had the information for every single New York trip, like how long they were and like what places we went to in which order. So this week, guys, I will be telling you all of the New York trips I have done over the past 12 years. So, with that being said, let's get right into it. P.S. One of the New York trips mentioned in this video will confirm the last time I was in New York in August before this year. I'll also tell you how old I was when we were doing these trips for each year, of course. Anyway, let's start off with the first ever New York trip we ever did. The New York trip 2007. This was the first ever New York trip to ever occur and also to be in the summer. Mainly the first ever New York trip to be in the summer, but also mainly the first one overall in all of the history. It started on July 30th and ended on August 8th. Part one of the trip was Rochester. Fun fact, we actually went to Rochester 2 times during this trip. The first one being July 31st through August 2nd. Then we did Buffalo from August 2nd through the 6th. Then we did Rochester Part 2, because like I said, we did Rochester twice in the trip from August 7th through the 8th. So, basically, it pretty much only lasted like one day because we left on the 8th to go back home. Back when this happened, I think it was like 5 or something back when we did the first ever trip. I was like 5 or something. Yeah, I was like 5 when we did the first ever New York trip. And one more thing before we go to 2008. This was the shortest New York trip we had ever done. No joke. It was the shortest New York trip we ever did, only lasting 10 days. Alright, moving on to the New York trip 2008. Now, this one was, honestly, to my belief, the most confusing New York trip in all the New York trips we've done over the past 12 years. Because, let me tell you, it was super confusing. I do know when it began, though, and that was June 5th. However, we don't know when it ended. That's the confusing part. You know what also made it super confusing? In this trip, and thank the Lord it was the only time we ever did this for a New York trip, we were split up. That's right. Split up completely. So, me and my brother Entros, we were up there from June 5th through the 23rd. A month later, my mom and my sister Rose Crystal went up, and they were there from July 25th through August 4th. So oddly enough, we actually don't even know when this ended, because we were pretty much completely split up at the time. So, we have no idea when this ended. So yeah. It was super confusing. Thank the Lord this was the only New York trip that we were completely split up. Aren't we glad? But once more, I do not remember when this ended. I even tried finding in any of the planners from 2008, and it does not show when it ended. However, don't worry, the rest of them that I'm going to share with you actually does have an end date. But with that being said, yeah, this one was the most confusing New York trip ever. So glad we never did it like this again. And we'll never be doing it like this again, because it was that confusing. Anyway, let's move on. Alright, the New York trip 2009. This is from 10 years ago. Yup, exactly a decade ago. Yup, a decade ago. This is when it happened. Because now it's 2019. So this was 10 years ago. So at the time, I was only like... I was 7 back then. 10 years later, I'm 17 now. That's pretty crazy. So, yep, this will prove that this was 10 years ago. So, yep, back then I was only 7 years old, I think, at the time. Yep. Because now I'm 17 10 years later. So, yep. Now I know that. But anyway, now I'll actually tell you where we were during the time. Since I actually, I think during the New York trip 2008, when I was up there with my brother, I think we were in Buffalo the entire time during the 2008 one, I forgot to mention. But the 2009 one, here was the order of the locations we went into. It's the usual ones as always. And yeah, let's show the order. Then I'll tell you how long this went from. Okay, so I looked through the 2009 planner we had, and all I could find was Buffalo. However, it doesn't show how long it was. I couldn't even find Rochester in there either. So clearly enough, I actually can't even tell you how long we were there for each location. But I do know how long the trip was, though. The New York trip 2009 went from July 18th and ended on August 2nd. Oh, by the way, this is where I tell you when the last time I was in New York in August. Drum rolls, please! August 1st, 2009. This was the last time I was in New York in August until the New York trip 2019. That's right. Right there. This very day marks history because this was the last time we were in New York in August until the New York trip 2019 on August 1st, 2019. Yep. It took us 10 years to bring back the New York in August thing. So, yep, this was the last New York trip to include August until 2019 New York trip. Anyway, let's move on. I'm pretty sure I'll be able to tell you how long we were in each location in the 2010 one. If I can find it. Anyway, speaking of that, let's move on to it. I forgot to mention the 2008 New York trip was the second New York trip to occur in the summer, and the 2009 one was the third one to occur in the summer. Just forgot to mention. Now let's move on. Alright, the New York trip 2010. Now, a little fun fact. Some of the things in this trip were actually brought back in the 2019 New York trip, by the way. I'll get to that in just a second. But, before we do, the New York trip 2010, wait! Before I tell you how long it was, let me tell you some of the old things in it. I'll save you how long it was for last. Because the dates for this one were actually very similar to another New York trip we did. But again, we'll get to that later. Anyway, one of the old traditions included, you might remember this one from this year, Niagara Falls. And before you ask, I actually have been to Niagara Falls before this New York trip. But this was the first New York trip to include it. But yeah, I have been to Niagara Falls way before this New York trip even happened. But this was the first time we included it in this, in New York trips as a whole. The day we went there was July 22nd, 2010. When I went there on that day, I was only like 8 at the time. Yeah, I was 8 when we last went there before this year. Fun fact, after this day, we did not go back to Niagara Falls again until July 29th, 2019. Meaning we did not go back there after this day for 9 years and 7 days. Oh, and by the way, I just found out when we were in Buffalo and Rochester in 2010. I was in Rochester from, if I can remember, if the 2010 planner says it right, the one I have here. Which, by the way, as of recording this video, I have all the planners from 2007 all the way to 2013 right here in my room so I can look up when all these were. Now, if I could read it correctly, it said, so part 1 was Rochester, and it was from, if I could remember this correctly, probably won't, but, hey guys, so before we continue the 2010 New York trip details, I just want to let you know, I was actually wrong when I actually said how long the 2009 one was. I was wrong. It was not July 18th through August 2nd. It was actually on July 5th through August 2nd. I read it wrong. Ah, who cares? I always make mistakes anyway. But yep, the New York trip 2009 really went from July 5th through August 2nd. I can't believe I got that wrong. I just wasn't reading it right. But hey, anyway, let's get back to the 2010 one, which I also just found out when we were for each location. Clear? Anyway, we were in Rochester in 2010 from July 13th through the 14th. So, only 2 days. Buffalo during the New York trip 2010 was from July 15th through the 25th. And finally, but not least, the moment you have all been waiting for, how long was the trip? Okay, you might recognize these dates, and they did return many years later. The New York trip 2010 was from, and this is actually the correct dates, unlike I did for 2009 where I messed up. It started on July 11th and came to an end on July 25th. Now you might recognize those dates from a future New York trip which we'll get to later. Anyway, let's move on to 2011. The New York trip 2011. Fun fact, this was the first ever New York trip to not begin in July, other than 2008, aka the most confusing New York trip out of all. But technically, this was the real first ever New York trip to not begin in July. It started on June 28th and ended July 13th. The New York trip 2011 started the day after my birthday. That's actually pretty cool. However, though, I just realized there is no sign of when we were at the 2 locations because I looked and they aren't there. So unfortunately, I can't tell you because they aren't there. It was a pretty good trip, by the way. But yeah, unfortunately, I looked all over the 2011 planner. I cannot find when we were at the 2 places. Buffalo and Rochester. If I also try to look again, which let me do that real quick. Nope. Can't find it anywhere. That's really sad. But the New York trip 2012, that will really explain. At the time I was 9, because it started the day after my birthday. So yep, I was 9 at the time. That was cool. Anyway, New York trip 2012 was actually even bigger. Let's move on to it now. That one has all the dates for that one of where we were during the 2 locations. Oh, and by the way, the rest of the New York trips after this one, I knew when we were in the 2 locations. This was the last one where I did not know. Anyway, moving on to the New York trip 2012. We thought that this was the first one to occur in June, but I guess we were wrong. It was really 2011. However, the reason why we went in June in this year was actually for a very good reason. Oh, and this reason was very good and special. The whole reason we started the New York trip this year for 2012 very early, instead of going in July, was because it was the 10-year anniversary of me being around. Back then, of course. Back then in 2012, it was the 10-year anniversary of me being around. So, of course, we had to celebrate in New York. But anyway, let me tell you when it began and when it ended. It started on June 26th and ended on July 11th. However, though, before the trip even actually started, we actually went to Washington, D.C. from June 24th through the 26th. Then, after that, the New York trip actually began. Fun fact, after going to D.C. in 2012, we did not go back there again until August 8th, 2019. So after we left DC on June 26th, we never went there again until August 8th, 2019. Part 1 was, of course, Rochester. I think you would have already found it obvious by now. But later on in future New York trips, that changed. I think it was actually after this one that it changed forever. June 26th through the 28th. Then we were in Buffalo from June 29th through July 9th. So, 10 days basically. Oh, and by the way, the video I made, this video right here, which was a vlog, on June 28th, 2017. Did you know the very location that I actually made this vlog on that day was actually a place we went to on my 10th birthday in 2012? That's a little fun fact right there. This exact location that you're seeing in this vlog footage, of course. Yep, we were there on my 10th birthday in 2012. This exact location you see in this footage from a vlog I made in 2017. Just a fun fact right there. But other than that, the New York trip 2012 was pretty much an absolute success. Let's move on to the 2013 one. Oh, actually, one more thing you should know. This was the last New York trip before the ranch was introduced. Yep, because in the next New York trip, the ranch was officially introduced. Woo! Alright guys, for this one I know exactly where we were during the period of time. The New York trip 2013, oh yes, this is the ones where I actually know what they all are now. So, yup. Anyway, you're probably wondering, where the heck, how long was the trip and when did we go to each place? Well, as I mentioned just a few seconds ago, this New York trip was the first New York trip to officially have the ranch in it. And ever since after this New York trip, the ranch has always been a part of the New York trip after this New York trip happened. But before we actually talk about that, let's go to how long this was. So, yeah. Anyway, hold on, I'm trying to find it. There we go. Alright, I just found it. Anyway, here we go. It started on June 27th and ended on July 16th. Now, Buffalo actually had two parts. Part 1 being from June 27th through the 30th. Part 2 being Rochester. And now, finally, the ranch. Now, if I can remember correctly, hopefully I am remembering this correctly, I think we were there from July 1st through the 4th, I believe. Pretty sure. Or it could have been for the 5th. I don't remember. Doesn't even say in the plan for 2013. Like I mentioned before, there was a second part to Buffalo. It started July 5th and ended the 16th. As the 16th of July, we left New York. On July 2nd, 2013, the Rock Tower was officially created at the ranch. You know, the one you guys know today at the ranch that I show you every year. For the first 2 years of being at the ranch, we were never able to sleep over there. That was not until 2015. I should also mention this was the 7th New York trip to occur in the summer. Basically the 7th New York trip overall. I also forgot to mention the 2010, 2011, and 2012. The 2010 was the 4th New York trip to occur. The 2011 one was the 5th New York trip to occur. The 2012 one was the 6th one to occur. And, like I just said, the 2013 one was the 7th New York trip to officially occur. Let's move on to 2004. Alright guys, the New York trip 2014. This one was actually pretty interesting. It started on June 24th and came to an end on July 22nd. It lasted for almost an entire month, just like 2009. This was the 8th New York trip to officially occur and was the 2nd New York trip to have the ranch. This was also the final year that we couldn't sleep over there because it wasn't good enough yet. Because the ranch wasn't fully, built in enough to actually make us sleep over there. It wasn't ready enough for us to sleep over there yet. In 2015, we were officially able to sleep over there at the Ranch. Speaking of New York, Buffalo and Rochester and the Ranch, our one was obviously Buffalo. And by the way, the 2013 New York trip was actually the first New York trip for it not to be Rochester first. It actually was Buffalo first, starting in 2013. But in 2014, we were there from June 24th through July 4th. Or it could have been a little earlier. Just like 2013, it was obviously Rochester/Ranch for part 2. And if I can remember this correctly, I think it was July 5th through the 7th. Or maybe even the 4th through the 7th. Look, I don't remember, but I think this is how I remember it. 2015 through 2019, I will have completely remembered when both were. But yep, this was, by the way, then this New York trip, 2014, the one I'm mentioning right now, this is the last one that I probably don't remember where all of them were. But from 2015 through 2019, I completely now remember where everything was back then. So, guys, there was also a second part to Buffalo, just like 2013. And that was from July 7th through the 22nd. The New York trip 2014 came to an end on July 22nd. We went back home to Florida. Alright, moving on to one I now officially remember. Like, fully, completely. The New York trip 2015. This was the first New York trip since, I believe, we thought that it was the first time since 2011, but I guess it's the first time since 2010 that it was not at the end of June. It was actually, fun fact, this was the first ever New York trip to last an entire month, aka the entire month of July, because the New York trip 2015 was from July 1st and ended on August 1st. So it went for the entire month of July. We were in Buffalo from July 1st through the 21st, and we were in Rochester/the Ranch from July 22nd through the 28th. But you're probably wondering, during that period, when were we at the Ranch? Simple. July 24th through the 25th, lasting 2 days. This was also the first ever New York trip for us to stay over at the Ranch. And ever since then, every year after that, we have always stayed over at the Ranch whenever we were there. And it was truly a success. Woo! Then from July 26th through the 28th, we spent our final few days in Rochester. And get this. The New York trip 2019, we were originally supposed to leave New York on July 29th. However, we decided to add an extra day. So our last day in Rochester was supposed to be our last day in New York. However, though, we decided to add an extra day for us being in New York. So what we did was we extended us being in New York by 1 day by going back to Buffalo on July 29th and spending the night there for one final time, and then finally leaving on July 30th. Took 3 days to get back home. July 30th, 31st, and August 1st. Got back home on August 1st, and it all came to an end. Alright guys, here we go. New York trip 2016. Now, for this one, I finally have footage of the trip. So, I'll show you that in just a second for both. But first, before that, let's obviously go over how long the trip went. So, guys, the 2016 New York trip went from... Wait! You know what I forgot to actually say? I actually forgot to mention a few things. I forgot to mention in the 2013 New York trip, I was 11. In the 2014 New York trip, I was 12. And in the 2015 New York trip, I was 13. In the 2016 New York trip, I was 14. So yeah, anyway. The New York trip 2016 was from... It started on June 25th and came to an end on July 19th. Now here's how long we were in for Buffalo and... Well, actually, as of 2016, we were no longer in just Rochester. Like we no longer only we no longer went to Rochester. As of 2016, it was only the ranch. That's right. It was only the ranch that we went to for the Rochester portion starting in 2016. Now, let me show you some pretty good footage. So yeah, it was pretty interesting. By the way, some of this footage you might actually recognize some of these rooms because quite literally, if you don't know, I was only in these rooms only at least a month ago. So if you gotta realize, these were actually pretty cool because quite literally I was in these rooms only at least a month ago. Back in July and August. But to be honest with all of you, you're probably wondering how long were we in Buffalo for 2016? Well, this could be pretty obvious because quite literally what we are doing right now, it was actually pretty cool. And as you can see, I am quite literally fast forwarding the video because, yeah, well technically as you can probably notice, I'm actually just sliding it along here. And that's kind of how I'm fast forwarding because I'm literally just doing like this because for no reason. But anyway, Buffalo guys for 2016 lasted from June 26th and went until July 3rd. The reason I put July 2nd there was because that was the last day. Actually, I'll change that to July 3rd. That's better, but technically we went to the ranch on July 3rd. Anyway, in all seriousness though, guys, it was actually really cool just to see how this would be done. And by the way you're seeing the footage, this is more footage from what you only saw like a month ago. In the 2019 one, but pretty much explains a lot. And it's pretty crazy to believe how all this was done. So on July 29th, 2016, we went over to that one location that you kind of see me film there at least once a year. And I have already filmed there like 7 times now as of this year. So, yep. It's pretty crazy to believe. So, yep. Then on July 2nd, we had kind of like a little party or something. I have no idea why. It was kind of like an early 4th of July party due to the fact that we were not even going to even be in Buffalo during the, give or take. Hold on. Let me pause that and screenshot. Yep. This was like an early 4th of July event since we were not going to be in Buffalo on 4th of July since we were going to be at the ranch during the time. So, yep, on July 2nd we had a little party due to the fact that we were not going to be in Buffalo on 4th of July of 2016. Although, this was actually the only New York trip where we were not in Buffalo for 4th of July. So yeah, it's pretty crazy to believe. And it was actually super cool because, I mean, come on. You gotta believe me. It's actually really cool. So, yep, finally, we actually have footage for the New York trip 2016. Let's move on to our second part. Alright, next up is the ranch in 2016. I'll tell you guys how long we were there in just a second, but of course, this is footage from the first day of the ranch. It was pretty crazy. I mean, the ranch has gone through a few changes since then. I mean, you saw it last month, so yeah. Oh man. So yeah, it was pretty crazy. So yep, this was part 2 of the New York trip, and it was actually pretty dang crazy just to believe how much was put into one single New York trip. I mean, come on. It was awesome to have this. And yep, the ranch you know today is still there. And you'll of course see it again by next time. But yep, this is how the ranch looked in 2016. It was actually pretty cool. However, there was another thing we did in the entire trip for the ranch, and that was spending 4th of July at the ranch. If you can clearly tell, this was actually pretty cool. And And yeah, we spent 4th of July at the ranch. That was really cool. And this was actually probably the only time we ever spent 4th of July at the ranch. But hey, I could be wrong. So yeah, I think this was the only time we spent 4th of July at the ranch. But it was really fun, in a way. So, yep. And I honestly just love it. Of course, we did go on some pretty cool adventures at the ranch. And here's how long we were there from. In 2016, of course. So we were there from July 3rd and came to an end on July 10th, lasting for exactly 1 week. On July 9th, 2016, which was the last day at the ranch, the family reunion party for 2016 was officially held. Now, you're probably wondering, why am I now mentioning all the other stuff now between New York trips? Because back then, I did not remember when all the other stuff existed. So, this was the family reunion party from 2016. It was on July 9th, and it was actually pretty dang cool. It was, again, our last day at the ranch in 2016, as the next day after, on July 10th, we officially went back to Buffalo again for pretty much the rest of the trip. For basically the last 9 days of the trip. And let me give you footage of that right now, and then we'll move on to 2017. On July 17th, we had another fun party, as it was actually called in the video here. We actually had a pretty cool fun event on July 17th for some reason, and let me slow it down right there. So, yep. This was the part 3 of Buffalo in the New York trip 2016. I'll give you guys the dates in just a second. But it was actually pretty cool. And this is quite literally what I love about this, what I love about part 3, which was Buffalo once more. And I think this was actually the last time we ever did Buffalo twice. Yep, this was the last New York trip that we ever did Buffalo twice. After this New York trip, we never did Buffalo twice ever again. It was the final time we ever did it twice in one New York trip. So, without further ado, here's some footage from the final day of the New York trip, 2016. July 18th, 2016 was the official last day of the New York trip 2016. In celebration, we went to a random arcade out of absolutely nowhere, and it was actually a lot of fun. As you can see, I'm obviously, speeding this up, because of course, it's actually probably even cooler that way if I speed it up. But, yep, it was really cool. Yep, I think speeding this up is a lot better, even though it can get pretty crazy at times. Which, by the way, if it is, then I will probably stop doing that. But we just went to a random arcade on July 18th, 2016 to celebrate our final day in New York. Now, a little fun fact about the New York trip 2016. It was supposed to end on July 22nd. Actually, we were supposed to be back home on July 24th. However, we decided to actually end it 3 days early. So we were originally supposed to leave New York in 2016 on July 22nd. However, we left 3 days earlier on July 19th. This was probably due to the fact that we probably had some pretty big stuff going on at the time and we had to leave early due to the fact. I don't remember what they were, but it was pretty crazy. To be honest, though, I'm kind of glad we don't do the month-long New York trips anymore, because holy frick, that was actually a pretty stressful time. But honestly, though, let's move on to the 2017 New York trip. Alright, here we go. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, this was the 10th New York trip to ever occur. If I did not mention 2015, that was the 9th New York trip to occur. But this, 2016, was the 10th New York trip to ever occur. Let's move on to 2017. Oh, also, I did say I would give you guys what days we were in Buffalo for part 3, and that was from July 10th through the 19th. Now moving on to 2017. The New York trip 2017. 2017 happened to be the biggest year for the New York trip. Are you ready? Why? Are you ready to hear why? There was not one, not two, but 3 New York trips in 2017. And yeah, that ain't no joke. There were 3 New York trips in 2017. And even though there are 2 of them that did not occur in the summer, which we were talking about this whole time, about the summer ones, I'll even explain the ones that we also did previously before the summer one of 2017. Let's begin. The first New York trip in 2017 happened to be the New York trip 2017, Part 1, Winter Edition. Yeah, that's actually a lot better with the text. For those who are easily confused with this one, oh yeah, by the way, it just turned midnight. Yay. I still have to get all the way to 2019. Come on! On January 30th, 2017, something pretty amazing happened regarding all of this. And that was the return of an epic classic. Well, it's something that you guys never saw before this backyard video on January 30th. However, it was an amazing return to an epic classic for me. Seeing snow. Well, are you ready to hear something? Because Rose Crystal stated how long it was since we last saw snow.
And Rose Crystal, and today, look at this area! You guys may recognize this area from one of the video profile episodes I made like almost 2 weeks ago. Sorry. But yeah, the only difference is snow. And yes.
It's the first time you've seen snow in 10 years.
Yes, you heard her. 10 years. Last time we ever seen snow was 2007. And today.
So, yep. The last time we ever saw snow before this very New York trip was 2007, at least in the winter of 2007. So, yep. That's right. So, you're probably wondering, like, what the heck was the main purpose of this New York trip? Well, we can follow later on. Well, we did have to go back for pretty personal reasons, which I will obviously not explain, because, of course, it's personal. And I don't want to explain it, because why the heck would I want to explain something personal? That'd be stupid! But I'll explain what I got to do out of this. I got to re-experience snow after 10 long years. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention, in the New York trip 2016, I was 14. Well, actually, I got to New York on my last day being 13, and then I was 14 for the rest of the trip. And by the way, during the first 2 New York trips of 2017, I was also still 14. That even includes in this one, the winter edition. But it was actually pretty cool. So yeah. We got to experience snow again after 10 long years, at least I did, and it was a huge success. So, yep. It was fun. Anyway. You're probably wondering, how long did this trip go? Well, actually, I think this was actually even shorter than the first ever New York trip we ever had done. And are you ready to hear why? Because this happened. It started on January 30th and came to an end on February 7th. Now making this the official shortest New York trip. Although, in reality, I think the first one was still technically the shortest. But during my time there, it was incredible. Now, yeah, it was actually really cool. And in this New York trip, you got to see what Location 1 of the New York trip looked like in the winter. That's also a plus with this New York trip. Also, fun fact, this was the first ever New York trip to not include Rochester. This was the first ever New York trip to only include one location. Buffalo. Yep, that's right. This was the first New York trip to only include one location, and that was Buffalo. Rochester was not included alongside the ranch in this New York trip, due to us only coming up here for one simple reason, to be in Buffalo. Now this also happened again, only 2 months later, and we'll get to that in just a second. But first, let's go through some other pieces of footage. So, yep. As you can see, we did a lot during this New York trip, and unfortunately, we never really did this kind of type ever again. This kind of style of the New York trip ever again, pretty much. Because there was no reason to. There was no more reasons to ever come up at this point of time. But back then, it was for a really good reason. So, guys, yeah, it was pretty nuts. And I gotta believe so myself, it was nuts. And yeah, it's super crazy to believe. But I have one more piece of footage to show you guys before we move on to the second New York trip of 2017. And guys, we're also starting to get near to the end. So, yep. Anyway. One more piece of footage. Let's play the actual footage.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to another backyard video. Now this one is going to be pretty short due to the fact that I don't have that much time because, yeah, I'll be going over to the airport in a few minutes.
Yeah, you are really determined because I have no gear on and
Yeah. Our winter coats are packed, so yeah.
It's really isn't that cold since it's 50 degrees. And also,
Yeah.
it's only built yesterday.
Oh yes! My grandpa returned again just to make these with us. Snowmen.
And over there.
True. So yes, guys, today it's Tuesday, February 7th, and yes, tonight we'll be back home again. So yeah, that look seems very pleasant. Sorry for the blurriness right there. Oh, and this was all made here by me. Yes.
That's how we made these things in the first place.
Yeah. Really fun. Anyway, guys, like I said, this is a short video. So yeah, guys, that's basically it. And this is the last time you'll be able to see a backyard video here until June. So yeah, guys, you won't be seeing this place until June 2017. So yeah, guys, goodbye, and make sure to like and subscribe.
See you guys.
Wrong! Because another New York trip occurred before the summer. AKA, on April 4th, 2017, we came back. Well, actually, the drive up was from April 2nd through the 3rd. But technically, we got there at nighttime on the 3rd. But the real first day was actually April 4th. We never actually expected to come back in April. We actually thought that after the winter one, we would obviously, come back in the summer like we usually do every year. However, unexpectedly, there was another one that happened before the normal summer one, which happened in April 2017. So, guys, this was pretty unexpected. Now, the whole reason we did this second one is because it was for the exact same reason that we did the winter one. And once again, because it's that exact same reason, I'm obviously not going to explain it, because once again, it is obviously personal, and I do not want to explain any personal things around here. Because I ain't stupid enough to. So, yeah. Do not want to explain any personal stuff, because, yeah, that would be very stupid. But it was for the exact same reason as the winter one. However, I'll tell you right now how long it went. Now, there was actually a little shocking surprise during the trip itself. Here is when it originally happened. We were originally only supposed to be there from April 2nd to the 19th. However, if you look down here, we had new dates and it actually came to an end. It was originally supposed to be from April 2nd and ending on the 18th, getting home on the 19th. However, something kind of bad happened, so we had to extend it for pretty much another week. So it actually came to an end on April 27th and got home on the 28th. So this is when it truly was. April 2nd through the 28th. But we ain't done yet. On April 7th, 2017, an unexpected snowstorm happened, which caused us to dig in the snow once again. It only lasted for 2 days of the trip though, April 7th through the 8th. So what this meant was we had to go for the snowy adventure again on the second New York trip of the year. Now, this wasn't really even supposed to happen. So, yeah. Anyway, it was actually pretty cool. But there's one scene in one of the videos that we made that was the absolute funniest. Let me pull it up right now.
Okay, you hold the chair and I'm social fun. Yeah. Wow. I was repairing a snowball, you jerk. Holy crap, no! This is the best backyard video! Whoa!
That was the funniest scene in the entire video, and that was probably actually the most fun I ever had in the snow during that New York trip. But, to be completely honest though, there are still 2 more things I should mention about this New York trip before we move on to the final New York trip of the year, which was the summer one, which is the one you are used to. Or more importantly, we are used to. Yeah, that's better how to say it. Never did I ever expect this to happen, but fun fact, during this New York trip, we were actually in New York on Easter of 2017. Now, fun fact, this was the first time since, for me at least, if I can remember, 2006. It was the first time since 2006 that we were ever in New York for Easter. So, it was the first time in 11 years that we were in New York for Easter. And I did not expect that, because that was during the second New York trip of the year. And that was pretty cool. So it was the first time in 11 years, aka 2006, that we were ever in New York for Easter. That was awesome. Still doesn't end there though. There's still one more thing I must point out before going to the summer one for the year. And that is, I spent Earth Day 2017 in New York. So I think it was also the same deal. It was the first time since 2006 since I last spent Earth Day in New York. So it took 11 years to bring that back. But it was only for one time, of course. So we spent Earth Day 2017 in New York, and this is the last thing I have to bring up for this New York trip. I know this video is quite long, and we're about to end it very soon. So, without further ado, guys, anyway, right now, guys, yep, this was for Earth Day 2017. And it was really cool. We explored a lot of cool areas and just so many more. Like, we even explored back here, like over there, near that shed. It was actually really cool. And we just did a lot on Earth Day. It was actually really cool. And that wraps up the New York trip 2017 Part 2 April edition. Finally, let's go on to the New York trip 2017 Part 3, the summer version, which is the official New York trip for the year. Here we go! Finally, we get to the official New York trip of 2017. And that was the official New York trip 2017 Part 3 Summer Edition. And as you can see, it began on June 23rd and came to an end on July 12th. Now, we actually brought something back from 2007 in this New York trip. However, there was 2 differences. We went to Rochester first. However, as I just said, there were 2 differences. One, it was in June. Well, actually, we already were in Rochester in June before. However, one simple difference out of both. Instead of us just going to my grandpa's house in June for that, and also instead of it being in July for Rochester itself, even though we already did that back in 2012, instead, we brought back Rochester first from 2007 and 2012. The only difference was that instead of it being my grandpa's house, it was the ranch. Yup, the only difference out of all of this was that it was at the ranch rather than my grandpa's house. So, yup, that was true. So we brought back a tradition from 2007 and 2012, which was going to Rochester first. But the only difference out of all of it was we were at the ranch. Now, if you're wondering how long were we at the ranch, well, take a look. We were at the ranch from June 25th through July 1st. Meaning I was at the ranch on my birthday. Oh, and speaking of June 27th, the Hide and Seek series! Yay! So, yep, the Hide and Seek series was officially introduced in this very New York trip. This very New York trip introduced the Hide and Seek series. It all started on my 15th birthday on June 27th, 2017. So it started on the day I turned 15. And by the way, in this New York trip, I was 15 at the time. Well, during the first 2 days of it, I was 14. But then on June 27th, I turned 15. And the Hide and Seek series all began. So, guys, without further ado, yep, this one New York trip is where the Hide and Seek series officially began. And after this New York trip, the Hide and Seek series has always come back every year from the New York trip. Whenever we're at the ranch, of course. Duh. Because we don't do it in Buffalo. Because there's no one to go with. But, anyway, aside from that, let's move on to... Well, actually, one more thing I should actually mention. Actually, 2 more things. Is on June 28th, 2017, a very epic location made a return after 5 long years. And that was the location I went to in Rochester on my 10th birthday. We went there on June 28th, 2017, finally, as a cool recreation. And it was amazing. I mean, come on. It was awesome. And I also did show you guys this footage earlier in the video, but of course, I obviously had to bring it up again as we did do it. It was incredible. And, yep, that was neat. So, with that being said, there was a lot that we did. And yeah, super crazy what we did during that time, at least. Now, there's one more thing I must mention for the ranch before we go to the Buffalo portion. So, yep. Anyway, and that is none other than the Philly Reunion Party 2017. This time, it occurred on July 1st, 2017. So, yep. Now, the vlog was actually split into 2 parts when I made the video. So, yeah, it was epic. So, yeah, this was neat. And yeah, oh man, just seeing the ranch, we were only there a month ago. Man, that was crazy. Yeah. Anyway, yep, this was also on the last day of the ranch for 2017, and it was crazy. So, yep. Anyway, let's go on to Buffalo, which is part 2. Part 2 of the trip was, of course, Buffalo. I think you guys would have already found that obvious. And that was none other than this.
Video time?
Yeah, about time. Well, yeah, now since it's getting dark, it's time to do a video. So yeah, guys, let's get into this backyard video. And there will probably be 2 more. Because of Wi-Fi, these will probably take around 1 to 2 hours. I do not know why, but they just do. Alright guys, let's get into it. It is 9 p.m. And how surprising is this? Well, yeah. Okay, so what has changed here over the last 3 months is, well, this stuff right here was planted, I think, around, like 2 days ago.
Okay, but you get the idea.
And I don't
Record, because
Well, and last night we made Big Brother Season 5.
yeah.
Finally!
Well, that's what you get for not having cellular connection for 2 weeks.
Well,
That's why I didn't have my channel 2 weeks, and well, I didn't upload, and I wanted to record, because when I record, I upload it immediately, so having a recorded video.
P.S. This was the 4th of July party 2017, just to let you know. This vlog.
And then not uploading it for the next 2 weeks. I want to have them on the day that they're recorded. Anyway, my papa made this really good food.
check it out. Chevetta's.
Chevetta's chicken. I'm gonna put that there.
That's not it. Because there's still many more. Here.
Want me to lift?
Yep.
Ribs.
Nice.
He made pretty much this entire spread himself. I think a few people brought in what they needed to bring in.
Check this out, guys.
But like Papa went crazy. He made the chevettas and ribs. People brought in what they needed to bring in. And all sorts of stuff.
I just zoom in on the stuff.
Do you know what? The Lego Control.
Actually, it's 1. But 2 Minecraft videos today. 1, Big Brother Season 5, Episode 5. And did you see the thumbnail of Rose Crystal's new video?
Yeah, I made it through Pixlr. I already mentioned it in the video. That's why I made use my channel art. And also that hide and seek. If you want to know who the girl was with us, that was our little cousin, Rowan. Apparently she has a soft spot. Okay, you know what that sounds. You know what? I'm just gonna.
Yeah, that's.
But the near to 2017 guys, the hide and seek series also introduced Rowan into this. So, well, we've seen her for years before this trip, of course, in obviously, real life. But the first ever time she appeared in one of my videos was hide and seek, and that was kind of it. But there was a lot of change throughout this. And we're about to end off this one right now.
Used to be for YouTube. Oh my god. 21 days to my 1 year anniversary. Whoa! I did not even notice that one even coming.
Right in the hands.
Yeah.
have to get out there and show them how to do it.
I can't believe I'm back at this place for the third time this year. It has been 3 times since I've been to this place this year. Can't believe how surprising. 1, in the snow. 2, half grass, half snow, and finally, just grass. Oh, finally.
What I meant during that video is I hinted all 3 of the New York trips for that year. And with that being said, there's only one thing we must do left. And we just hit an hour. This is also when we brought back the familiar location from 2016. After this, I will officially get on to the New York trip 2018. And then after that, 2019, and we are finally done! Oh my god. This is taking hours.
Only doing this. I was at this place.
P.S. This was also filmed on the last day of the New York trip 2017. Part 3, of course.
2 times. Which is now probably turned into this.
Because the only way I can drive it by myself, because I've been doing it now for the past 2 years.
Okay, which way am I gonna go? Once again, if this is a bad idea to put online to showcase another house, then I'm dead. So let me know if this is a good idea or not. I'm just saying really quick. We're not gonna go up there because that's not really a good idea to showcase up there, so nope.
But yep, we went back to the familiar location once more from 2016, and it was pretty much a success.
Yeah, that's from 4th of July, I believe.
Yep, a very familiar location. Pretty awesome. And
No, we
one
have
more
to
clip
see.
I should mention. The end of the New York trips of 2017. Oh, and by the way, this description actually makes sense, since I said that I did not mind leaving. And the reason for that is because we were already in New York for 3 times in a row. Come on! It was obvious by then.
That's another year.
So this was goodbye to the New York trip 2017, part 3. And guys, that's it for the New York trip 2017. Man,
Many times ever
it took
again.
ages. Thank the Lord we can finally move to 2018. Which finally there was only one New York trip. Thank the Lord. Finally, we get to the New York trip 2018. Now, we're now back to our normal routine in this one. But there was a little bit of a difference. But first, this is where an old date tradition came in. As you know, the New York trip 2010 was from July 11th through the 25th. The New York trip 2018 was from, it started on July 11th and came to an end on July 25th. Do you guys realize something? Recognize something? Yeah, because that's the exact same dates from 2010. That's right, we brought back an old date from previous New York trip. That's right. That was an old tradition from 2010 that we brought back in the New York trip exactly 8 years after. Exactly 8 years later, these dates were brought back. And we actually did not even remember that. We actually thought that these were dates that we never did before, but after looking at the 2010 planner only a few days ago, we found out that these dates were actually been used before for a New York trip. So, yeah, although there was 2 differences. So, we arrived in New York in 2010 on July 13th and left New York officially on July 25th. However, get this. In 2018, we arrived in New York on July 12th and left New York on July 24th. Huh? See a difference there? We actually changed it up a little. The only thing that's the same from 2010 is the date. And that's actually it. On July 12th, 2018, we officially arrived in New York for 2018. I'll explain how long we were in Buffalo in just a few seconds. But this year, because we were only on the 2-week radius of July 11th through the 25th, we decided to change it up a little. Instead of lasting a week, aka 7 days in each location, we changed it up and only lasted in each location for 6 days. So, day 1 of Buffalo was July 12th, and I'll again give you guys the date in just a second. But here's footage from what I did on July 12th, 2018. I'll even play it with the sound.
Oh my god. No way. Is this actually real? Are we actually here again? No freaking way. Yeah! No, seriously, we actually are here again. Guys, we're back. We're back in this place again. Woo! Finally. So guys, welcome back to another video. I'm not sure if, this is the backyard view or not. Okay, never mind. This is, okay. So here's the backyard views is coming right out.
Okay, but in actual seriousness, it was just to welcome back the old location of Buffalo from the New York trip. And here is how long we were in Buffalo for 2018. We were in Buffalo in 2018 from July 12th, and it ended on the 18th. So it started on July 12th and ended on the July 18th. So yeah, Buffalo was pretty much the same thing as 2017. However, there could have been a few differences though, which I think there were. Well, actually, I think it was actually completely exactly the same as 2017, actually. There was, like, no differences at all, other than the Buffalo being, like, 2 days shorter. That's kind of the only difference. So, yeah. Anyway. Yep. Like, it was really cool that we finally got to go back again and re-experience Buffalo again for, I don't know, maybe like, oh my god, I think like the 12th time or something. I don't know. Well, guys, I also just want to let you know this was the give or take 12th New York trip to occur in the summer, and I forgot to mention the 2017 New York trip, part 3, of course, the summer one, was the 11th New York trip to occur in the summer. By the way, during this New York trip 2018, I was 16 years old during this New York trip. So as you can see, every year I keep getting older and older with this stuff. Oh, and you're not going to believe what 2019 was, which was very recent. Actually, you know what I just realized? That actually ended exactly a month ago today now. Because now it's September 8th. And we left New York on August 8th. So, yeah, I just realized that. The New York 2019 just ended a month ago today. Holy frick! How was that possible? However, of course, it obviously, doesn't end there. Because, of course, check it out. We did a lot of pretty cool stuff regarding this. So, yep, it was more of Buffalo itself. It was all really cool. So, yeah, this was Buffalo for 2018. It was really fun. But of course, probably the most interesting part out of all of this probably had to come from none other than this. Let me play with the actual footage.
I tried to get up early, and I got up at 6:30 in the morning. It doesn't really look like 6:30 in the morning, but it technically looks more like 6:40. That's very weird. Also due to the fact that it was like raining like very early this morning. Yeah. This is weird.
To pretty much wrap it all up in a way, it was basically we were doing the exact same activities as 2017. However, there's actually one difference, actually, with Buffalo. Did you know that this was, this year's New York, the 2018 New York trip marked the first ever time that I filmed a study vlog in New York. The first one obviously being filmed in Buffalo on July 15th, 2018. But the day after that, a very familiar location came back, which was the familiar location from 2016 and 2017. It came back on July 16th, 2018, and it was really cool. So, yep. I can guess which one that is. Yep, that one. And now it's pretty dang nuts. It's actually really cool. Yep, it was this location again, for the third time in a row. So, yep. Yep, it came back on July 16th, and then that was pretty much a wrap-up on Buffalo. Now we can finally move on to the ranch. Yay. Part 2, the ranch. Yeah. Pretty neat. So after 2 years, it was finally back to being part 2 of the trip. Because in 2017, it was part 1 of the trip. Now this is footage from July 19th, 2018. I'll show you guys the dates in just a second for how long we were there. And yeah, it was really cool. Many things returned at the ranch in 2018, which pretty much summed it all up. It was really awesome. So yeah. Pretty much everything from the past, like, 5 years pretty much came back in this one. And that even included this year's too, at the ranch in 2019, but we're focusing on 2018. So yeah. Yep, everything from the ranch obviously came back once more. Like the 6th time in a row. So yeah. And yeah. I even went around the pond. Just like I did in 2017. Which is by doing this. Yep, this was on July 21st. When I re-showcased the pond and dock. That was really cool. Next up, on July 22nd, 2018, Hide and Seek came back for the second time. Yep, Hide and Seek came back for the second time. And, yep, for 2018. And, yeah, just got better. This was, again, July 22nd, 2018. And, yeah, it was the return of all of the people that played with us the previous year. So, yep, that even includes Rowan, of course. So, yep, Hide and Seek made a return in this New York trip for at least 2 days. And it was epic to see what could have happened then. But the most epic moment out of everything at the ranch in 2018 had to be this. Well, actually, there's two scenes that I absolutely love. Let me show you the first one.
You're right. You can do this for years. You can do this for years, man.
I saw that dress.
That was honestly my most favorite scene to come out of the entire series. And hopefully
And yes, that was my favorite scene to ever come out of the entire series, but also alongside Hide and Seek 2018, which was part of the New York trip 2018. There's one more thing I gotta show you about the 2018 New York trip, and we can finally move on to the 2019 New York trip where it all ends for now. Until the 2021, of course. Here we go. And that is this masterpiece.
This is the last backyard view at the ranch. So this is the last backyard view at the ranch for this year. And guess what we decided to do? We decided to drive through the woods! We've already done this for the past few minutes. But let's wrap up this year's backyard views at the ranch by driving through the woods. Let's do this! Here we are! Oh yes, the beautiful wilderness from last year. Some of you may recognize this from a year ago. Well, I got nothing better to film for today's. I just thought this would just be probably the best idea ever. And I've never done something like this before. So let's just enjoy this while we can.
This was absolutely amazing. And I'm kind of glad we did it the year after because that was also incredible. But that officially wraps up the ranch for 2018. But before I end it off, let's of course check out what dates I was at the ranch from. I was at the ranch from July 18th. It started July 18th and came to an end on July 24th when I officially left New York. On July 24th, 2018, I left New York completely for the rest of the year. Until 2019. And speaking of 2019, here we go, guys. It is the last New York trip we have done so far. Check it out. Oh, yes. The most recent New York trip out of all. Fun fact, this was the 13th New York trip to occur in the summer. But get this. This was no normal New York trip, you guys. Let me just make that 100% clear. This was no normal New York trip. I repeat, no normal New York trip. This one was absolutely insane. Are you guys ready to hear why it was super insane? Well, you guys know exactly why it was super insane. You guys saw the whole thing. But the dates will probably shock you, by all means. But for you guys to be surprised about the dates of this year's New York trip, I'll say them at the end, just to make it even more epic. For now, though, let's check out what days I was at both locations this year. This year's was absolutely insane. 6 old traditions from the past New York trips were brought back into a matter of only 2 weeks. Yes, this ain't no joke. 6 traditions were brought back in this very New York trip. They're all from the previous, and I'll go into them right now as we go into the 2 locations from usual. Buffalo and the ranch. So we were in Buffalo from July 26th through August 1st. Fun fact, by the way, if you don't remember, this was the first time in 10 years that we were in New York in August. Yes, it was the first time since 2009 since we were last in New York in August. 10 years later, exactly 10 years later, it was brought back in a surprising new way. But first, let's go over to the other side of the New York trip, Buffalo, part 1. So, here's what happened during our duration at Buffalo. You may recognize some of these old traditions. Fun fact, before the trip even began, some of our New York cousins started to get worried that we weren't going to come back. It was already halfway through July, and they saw still no sign of us ever seeing them. So I'm pretty sure some of them probably got worried that we were not coming back this year to New York. They were probably thinking that we were probably not even going to do the trip this year. However, we surprised them with a thing called the late appearance. And you know what it means? We showed up later than any of them have ever expected. Fun fact, this New York trip brought back the tradition of going up to New York at the end of July rather than the middle of July. So that was a really cool thing, and yup, that's right. During this time. And it was crazy. So we officially arrived in New York on July 25th, and the whole trip began. It was an epic thing we have done. But seriously though, I'm pretty sure some of our New York cousins probably started to get worried that we weren't going to come back. But then again, we surprised them with coming up late, which I'm pretty sure none of them ever saw coming. But we knew about it. We knew we were going to come up late this year. I mean, come on. We had to change it up eventually. You can't stick with the same thing forever. You can't stick with the same kind of way forever with these things. So we decided to change it up and go up late instead of the middle of July. So that was probably an epic move on us for doing that. So, guys, this was amazing. So, with that being said, there was a lot of awesome stuff being brought back. Here's some of them that were in Buffalo, of course. On July 29th, 2019, Niagara Falls returned to the New York trip after 9 years and 7 days. You may have heard me mention this earlier in the video when we were in the 2010 New York trip. I mentioned that that 2010 one was the last time we went there until July 29th, 2019, and here we are mentioning it now. So, Niagara Falls was finally brought back again after 9 years and 7 days, and trust me, it was so much better than the previous time we went. And it was awesome. So, with that being said, it was awesome to be back in Niagara Falls after that long, and that was one of the traditions that were brought back. Again, the other traditions were obviously including being in New York in August again after over 10 years. After exactly 10 years. Yeah, that was one of the... I already just mentioned 2 traditions now. So yeah. Anyway, it was awesome to be back in Niagara Falls. It was so cool to see it return after 9 years and 7 days. And next up, actually, I think that was actually it for Buffalo, actually. Well, actually, there's one more thing, which includes us transitioning to August inside New York, which looked like this. Yep, we were still in Buffalo on August 1st, and this pretty much changed everything. See, the thing is, actually, hold on, I gotta look at this, because I want to remember. Were we in Buffalo in 2009 on August 1st? Oh, hold on. There's the clip. Right there. Okay, I don't know what's going on. My screen is kind of like individuals or something. That's kind of weird. Hold on. Trying to look. Were we in Buffalo on August 1st? I think we weren't. Look, I don't know. I think we were probably. So I think we just recreated the tradition from that point on. So yeah, this was August 1st, 2019. So it was the first time after 10 years that we were in New York in the month of August. How awesome was that? Hide and Seek came back for the third time. And it was, of course, the 2019 tradition. Of course, cousins such as Rowan and Peyton made a return in this for 2019. But for most of the episodes, it was by Rowan, of course. But anyway, yep, Hide and Seek came back for the third time. This was August 3rd, 2019. And that was another thing that was brought back. Well, it really wasn't really actually a tradition overall because it is a yearly thing. But if you'd like to count it, then okay. But aside from that, yep, Hide and Seek was brought back for the third time during this New York trip. And we also found a brand new tradition in the New York trip. Ranch in August. That's right, because we were never at the ranch before in August. And fun fact, this New York trip marked the 7th time we were at the ranch. That's right, the 7th time we were at the ranch. But this was the 5th time we were able to sleep over there. And yeah. Anyway. Part 2 as the ranch was from August 2nd through the 8th. Seem familiar? I think it is, because it reminds me of 2007 when we were in Rochester. Because for one of the days here in August, we were in Rochester, so it was kind of cool recreation. But mainly overall. Now we get over to the other side of the trip, which is of course obviously the ranch. And, well, there were a few differences. Yeah, there was actually a few differences with the ranch this time. And are you ready for that? One of the differences at the ranch was it was in August instead of July, like we're all used to. And secondly, normally, the family reunion party at the ranch is always at the end of the week of us being at the ranch. However, this year, due to coming to the ranch on a weekend, it was done at the beginning of our time at the ranch this year. Now, there was a few differences between the dates between Buffalo and the ranch. For one, Buffalo lasted for 7 days, and the ranch lasted for 6 days. By the way, there was actually a fun fact about this. And I also forgot to mention the familiar location. I forgot to mention that. I'll just mention that in just a second. But yep, this year, instead of the family reunion party for this year happening at the end of the week, like it normally is, it happened at the beginning of the week because we came out onto the ranch on a weekend, and we normally have the family reunion party on a Saturday or a Sunday. This year it was on a Sunday, meaning August 4th. So, with that all being said, I think there was one more tradition we brought back. Actually, there was 2 more. One of them being on August 6th, which was going to a place in Rochester called Wayland, going to like an old country house on August 6th, because we hadn't been there in so many years. And yeah, that was cool. That was a tradition from back in the day. Older New York trips, of course. And, I think that was it for old traditions. Well, at least for the ranch, because there's an old tradition that is outside of New York and the ranch, mainly outside of New York as a whole. And I'll get to that in just a minute. But yeah, it was actually really cool. Now let me show you when we went to the, familiar location. This was, of course, back in the week of Buffalo. On July 29th, 2019, the familiar location made a return. And this was the last time we saw it, for now and for this year, of course. I mean, of course, we'll obviously see it again next year, but we made a return on July 29th to the familiar location. Yay! But there were actually a few changes with this, and yeah, want to know what they were? Well, I guess I can show you in the footage right here. But yeah, this was kind of the last thing we did. Sorry, I forgot to mention this in the Buffalo portion. I know, my bad. But yeah, there were a few changes. Like that table being there. Anyway. So yeah. Anyway, I think that was actually it for the entire New York trip as a whole. Yeah, for the entire New York trip as a freaking whole. It was amazing. So glad we brought back all the old traditions. Well, at least 6 of them, to be exact. And it was just incredible to see, like, what we could have done with all of this. And it also just hit 2 a.m. I've been recording this since like 9 p.m. on September 7th. That's how long I've been making this video. And yeah, now it's 2 a.m. 2:01. Come on! Why do I have to always record Saturday Story? This is actually probably the longest time I have ever recorded a Saturday Story. Don't worry, next week's story will obviously require me just to record it as early as possible. So yeah. And that was one of the changes right there. But yep, the familiar location came back for the 4th time, and it was incredible. On August 7th, 2019, it was the official last day of the ranch, alongside the official last day of the New York trip, 2019. I know, it was crazy to believe that this was the official last day, which is now over a month ago now, basically. I don't know how to say it, but it was fun. But yep, this was the official last day, and let me scroll to some cool footage. So yeah, like, it was really, really sad to believe that it was the last day. And in this video, we said, unfortunately, goodbye to Rowan for another year, and never actually were able to finish Hide and Seek 2019. But we filmed 8 episodes in total in a matter of only 4 days. It was crazy to believe, and to be honest, I already miss her already. Yeah. Now I have to wait 10 months to see her again? What? I know. Well, normally, because we only see her in July, basically. But this year, we actually surprised her with seeing her in August. So that was fun. But aside from that, it was the last day of the ranch alongside the last day of the New York trip, 2019. So with that being said, guys, the New York trip 2019 was an absolute success. And why was it? Because we did so much combining everything. The trip began on July 24th and came to an end on August 8th. And guys, with that said, that officially wraps up the New York trips for every single year that we had done so far. And so far, at least, I can finally delete this comment that I've been writing all this time. Because if you look here, look. I've been writing this comment the entire time. Watch. It's gone. It's gone completely. Because we are done. Oh, not this again. But guys, can you believe it? So much was brought back in one New York trip. Seriously? And did you recognize the day? Actually, I forgot to type it in. The date, no. Let me type it in. Yep, July 24th through August 8th. You might recognize the date as August 8th because that was the original day we left New York for the first ever time in a New York trip. And yeah, guys, I can't believe it. Are you guys ready to see how long it took me to make this video? Well, are you ready? 3, 2, 1. That's right. 1 hour and 35 minutes to make this video. I had been doing this since 9 p.m. on September 7th. So, yep, it all happened. This was the biggest thing I have ever done. The New York Trip 2019, it was honestly, let me just tell you right now, it was honestly the best New York trip we had ever done. Oh, and I also forgot to mention what happened after we left New York on August 8th. Washington, D.C. made a return after 7 long years. As I mentioned earlier in this video, I said that we did not go back again until August 8th, 2019, and on August 8th, 2019, we went back to Washington, D.C. for 2 days straight, August 8th and August 9th. It was pretty cool, and we had a lot of fun there. But mainly, guys, thank you for watching this very long Saturday Stories. I promise I never make one this long again, because it was the longest thing I think I've ever made. So thank you guys so much for watching. I will see all of you tomorrow for the Sunday vlog. And yeah, guys, with that being said, goodbye. Oh my god, I'm so glad I'm finally done with this video. Man, that was a lot of talking. So glad I'm finally done. See you guys tomorrow.